There is an experiment you can perform in a laboratory that will break your understanding of reality. Take two particles, electrons or photons, entangle them through a specific quantum interaction, then separate them, move one particle to Tokyo, move the other to New York. The distance between them is roughly 11,000 kilometers. Light takes 37 milliseconds to cross this distance. Nothing can travel faster than light, according to Einstein's special relativity. This is fundamental. The cosmic speed limit, the maximum rate at which information can propagate through space. Now, measure a property of the particle in Tokyo, the spin orientation. The moment you complete the measurement, something impossible happens. The particle in New York instantly knows what happened in Tokyo. Not after 37 milliseconds. Not after any delay whatsoever. Instantly, simultaneously. The correlation between the two measurements is perfect. Stronger than any classical explanation can account for. And this correlation persists regardless of distance. You could separate the particles by the width of the galaxy, measure one, the other responds instantly. This is quantum entanglement, the phenomenon that Einstein called spooky action at a distance. He meant it as criticism, as evidence that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that something was missing from the theory, some hidden variable that would restore locality and causality in common sense to physics. Einstein spent the last decades of his life trying to prove that quantum mechanics could not be the final word on reality, that underneath the probabilistic quantum description, there must be a deeper deterministic theory where particles have definite properties and nothing travels faster than light. He was wrong. Experiments have confirmed this beyond any reasonable doubt. Quantum entanglement is real. Non-locality is a fundamental feature of nature. Two particles can be connected in ways that transcend space and time as we understand them. The universe does not respect the intuitive notion that distant objects are independent, that measuring something here cannot instantly affect something there. Reality is stranger than Einstein could accept. And the implications reach far beyond physics into questions about the nature of consciousness, free will, and the structure of existence itself. Picture the moment this became undeniable. The year is 1982. Alain Aspect and his team at the University of Paris conduct an experiment that will change physics forever. They create pairs of entangled photons, light particles that emerge from a calcium atom in a specific quantum state. The two photons are correlated. If you measure the polarization of one and find it vertical, you will find the other horizontal. If you find one at 45 degrees, you will find the other at negative 45 degrees. Perfect anti-correlation. But here is what makes the experiment revolutionary. Aspect introduces randomness into the measurement. The detectors can be switched between different measurement settings faster than light could travel between them. This eliminates any possibility that the particles are communicating through signals traveling at light speed or slower. The measurement settings are chosen after the photons have separated, after any light speed signal would need to have been sent to coordinate the results, and yet the correlations persist. Perfect, instantaneous, unexplainable through any local realistic theory. The data is unambiguous. The correlations violate Bell's inequality. This is a mathematical relationship derived by physicist John Stuart Bell in 1964. Bell proved that if quantum mechanics is wrong, and there exist hidden variables that determine particle properties in advance, then certain statistical correlations between measurements must obey specific limits. Any local realistic theory where particles have definite properties and nothing travels faster than light must satisfy these inequalities. Quantum mechanics predicts violations. Nature sides with quantum mechanics. Aspect's experiment and hundreds of subsequent experiments confirm the violations. The statistical signatures are clear. Quantum entanglement produces correlations stronger than any classical mechanism can explain. The universe is non-local. Measuring one particle genuinely affects the other instantly, regardless of separation. This is not interpretation, not philosophy, but established experimental fact verified in laboratories worldwide for over 40 years. Einstein would have hated this conclusion. In 1935, he published a paper with Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen outlining what became known as the EPR paradox. The argument was elegant. Assume quantum mechanics is complete. Take two entangled particles. Measure the position of one. Quantum mechanics says you instantly know the position of the other. Alternatively, measure the momentum of the first particle. You instantly know the momentum of the second. But according to quantum mechanics, a particle cannot simultaneously have definite position and momentum. The uncertainty principle forbids it. Yet here we can know both properties of the distant particle by choosing what to measure on the near one. Either the distant particle somehow knows what measurement we will perform before we perform it and adjusts its properties accordingly, or the particle had definite position and momentum all along, and quantum mechanics is incomplete. EPR chose the second option. They concluded there must be elements of reality, not described by quantum mechanics, hidden variables that determine particle properties in advance. The apparent randomness of quantum measurements reflects ignorance of these hidden variables, not fundamental indeterminacy. This was Einstein's position for the rest of his life. He could not accept that reality was fundamentally probabilistic, could not accept that particles did not have definite properties until measured, could not accept non-locality. In his view, the universe must be local and realistic. Cause must precede effect. Information cannot travel faster than light. Particles must exist in definite states, whether or not we observe them. Quantum mechanics might be a useful calculational tool, but it could not be the complete description of physical reality. Niels Bohr and the Copenhagen interpretation disagreed. In their view, quantum mechanics is complete. Particles do not have definite properties until measured. The wave function describing a particle represents genuine indeterminacy, not incomplete knowledge. Measurement causes wave function collapse, selecting one outcome from many possibilities. Before measurement, the particle exists in superposition. Multiple contradictory states, simultaneously real. Only through observation does reality crystallize into a single, definite outcome. This interpretation troubled Einstein deeply. It implied that reality depends on observation, that the moon might not exist when nobody is looking at it, that consciousness or measurement apparatus plays a fundamental role in determining what exists. This seemed absurd. Surely the universe existed before humans evolved to observe it. Surely galaxies and stars had definite properties before any measuring device was constructed. The Copenhagen interpretation appeared to elevate observers to cosmic significance, to suggest that reality is somehow created through observation rather than existing independently. But the EPR paradox did not refute Copenhagen. It simply highlighted the tension between quantum mechanics and classical intuitions. For decades, the debate remained philosophical. No experiment could definitively distinguish between Copenhagen's non-local quantum mechanics and Einstein's hoped-for local hidden variable theory. Both approaches made the same predictions for available experiments. The question seemed destined to remain metaphysical rather than scientific. Then in 1964, John Stuart Bell changed everything. He proved that local hidden variable theories make different statistical predictions than quantum mechanics for certain entangled particle measurements. The difference is subtle. It emerges only when measuring correlations at different angles, but it is real and experimentally testable. Bell derived inequalities that any local realistic theory must satisfy. Quantum mechanics violates these inequalities. nature would have to choose sides. The mathematics is intricate, but the logic is clear. Consider two entangled particles measured at different detector settings. In a local hidden variable theory, the particles carry instructions determining their measurement outcomes. These instructions were determined when the particles were created. They do not change based on what measurement is performed. The distant particle's outcome depends only on the instructions it carries and the detector setting it encounters, not on what happens to the other particle. Under these assumptions, the statistical correlations between measurements are constrained. Bell derived the specific mathematical form of these constraints. For certain combinations of measurement angles, the correlations cannot exceed specific values. This is not approximate, it is an exact mathematical theorem. Any theory where particles have predetermined properties and signals cannot exceed light speed must satisfy these bounds. Quantum mechanics violates the bounds. For maximally entangled particles measured at optimal angles, quantum predictions exceed Bell's limits. The difference is small, but measurable. Roughly 40% stronger correlation than classical physics allows. This violation indicates either non-locality or the abandonment of realism. Either information somehow travels faster than light, or particles do not have definite properties before measurement. Local realism is incompatible with quantum mechanics. Aspect's 1982 experiment tested this prediction. The results confirmed quantum mechanics. Bell's inequality was violated by exactly the amount quantum theory predicted. Subsequent experiments have refined and extended these tests. Entangled photons separated by kilometers, entangled atoms, entangled superconducting circuits. Every system tested shows the same result. Quantum correlations exceed classical limits. Nature violates Bell's inequality. Local realism is ruled out. What does this mean? The interpretation remains debated, but the experimental facts are clear. Measure an entangled particle here, and you instantly gain information about its partner there, not through any signal traveling between them. The correlation exists without information transmission in the classical sense. Some physicists accept non-locality. The universe has hidden connections transcending space. Others reject realism. Particles genuinely do not have definite properties until measured. The wave function is complete, and collapse is real. Both options are disturbing. Non-locality suggests the universe is fundamentally interconnected in ways that defy our spatial intuitions. Space might be emergent rather than fundamental. What we perceive as distant, separated objects might be different manifestations of some deeper non-spatial reality. Measurement here revealing information about a distant particle might indicate they were never truly separate. Our perception of separation might be the illusion. Rejecting realism is equally strange. It implies the physical universe does not exist in definite states, independent of observation. Quantum systems exist in superposition, multiple contradictory realities simultaneously present. Only through measurement does one reality become actual. This elevates measurement to cosmic significance. Before any observer existed, did the universe exist in eternal superposition? Does observation create reality, or merely reveal pre-existing fact? The questions become philosophical, yet they emerge from rigorous experimental physics. Some physicists embrace many worlds interpretation as an alternative. In this view, superposition never collapses. All possible measurement outcomes occur but in different branches of a constantly splitting universe. Measure an entangled particle and find spin-up. In that branch, the distant particle is spin down, but another branch exists where you found spin down and the distant particle is up. Both outcomes are real, but in separate, non-interacting universes. The branching happens continuously for every quantum measurement throughout the cosmos, creating an infinite proliferation of parallel realities. This interpretation preserves determinism and avoids true randomness. The wave function evolves according to Schrödinger's equation without collapse. But it requires accepting that reality consists of countless parallel universes, most of which we can never observe or interact with. Every quantum event splits the universe. The you reading this sentence has already split into trillions of slightly different versions, experiencing different photon absorption patterns in your retina. These versions are equally real but forever separated. The interpretation trades collapse for infinite proliferation. Other interpretations exist. De Broglie-Bohm pilot wave theory maintains determinism and realism by introducing actual particle positions guided by quantum wave functions. But the guidance is non-local. The wave function instantaneously influences particle motion everywhere. Objective collapse theories suggest wave function collapse is a physical process triggered by gravity or other mechanisms when systems exceed certain size thresholds. Quantum Bayesianism treats wave functions as representing knowledge states rather than physical reality. Each interpretation has adherents and technical advantages, but regardless of interpretation, the experimental facts stand. Quantum entanglement is real. Non-local correlations exist. Bell's inequality is violated. Einstein's objections to quantum mechanics have been answered by nature itself. The universe does not conform to local realism. Whatever the ultimate explanation, it requires abandoning deeply held intuitions about the independence of distant objects or the definiteness of physical properties, or both. The practical applications are already emerging. Quantum cryptography uses entanglement to create unbreakable encryption. Any attempt to intercept the quantum key disturbs the entangled state, revealing the eavesdropper's presence. Quantum teleportation uses entanglement to transfer quantum states between particles without the state ever traveling through the intervening space. The original particle's quantum information appears at the destination while the original is destroyed. Not faster than light communication, because classical information must also be sent, but genuine transfer of quantum states across space through entanglement. Quantum computers exploit entanglement to perform certain calculations exponentially faster than classical computers. Qubits in superposition can represent multiple values simultaneously. Entanglement allows qubits to share quantum information in ways impossible for classical bits. The interference between quantum states enables algorithms that solve specific problems with unprecedented efficiency. Factoring large numbers, searching databases, simulating quantum systems, all become tractable through quantum entanglement. These technologies are not science fiction. Quantum cryptography networks operate commercially. Quantum teleportation has been demonstrated over hundreds of kilometers. Quantum computers with dozens of entangled qubits perform calculations impossible for classical machines. The fundamental strangeness of quantum mechanics is being engineered into practical devices that will reshape information technology. Within decades, quantum entanglement may be as routine and ubiquitous as the classical electromagnetic phenomena that power current electronics. But the deeper questions remain. What is entanglement telling us about the nature of reality? Why does the universe allow instantaneous correlations across arbitrary distances? How can two particles separated by the width of the galaxy respond to each other as if distance does not exist? The phenomenon is established beyond doubt. The explanation remains mysterious. Some physicists argue we should simply accept the mathematics and stop asking why. Shut up and calculate. Quantum mechanics works. It makes predictions. Experiments confirm them. Asking what is really happening behind the wave functions and measurements is not physics, but philosophy. We have a working theory. That should be enough. Demanding intuitive pictures is imposing inappropriate classical expectations on quantum reality. Others insist we must understand what nature is telling us. Quantum mechanics reveals something profound about the universe's structure. Entanglement suggests space and time may not be fundamental but emergent from deeper quantum relationships. Perhaps the universe is fundamentally non-spatial at its base level. What we perceive as space might be a coarse-grained description of quantum entanglement patterns. Particles appear separated in space, but at the fundamental level, they remain connected through quantum correlations that transcend spatial relationships. This perspective leads to speculative but intriguing ideas. If space emerges from entanglement, then the geometry of space-time might be determined by the pattern of quantum correlations. Einstein's general relativity describes how mass and energy curve space-time. But perhaps space-time curvature is itself a manifestation of changing entanglement structure. Gravity might emerge from quantum entanglement. The force pulling masses together might reflect underlying quantum connections between particles. Some theoretical physicists pursue this possibility seriously. The ADS-CFT correspondence in string theory provides mathematical examples where gravitational physics in a higher dimensional space emerges from non-gravitational quantum field theory in lower dimensions. The geometry of the higher dimensional space encodes the entanglement structure of the lower dimensional theory. Space is literally built from quantum entanglement in these models. Whether this applies to our universe remains uncertain, but the mathematics is rigorous and suggestive. Other researchers explore whether quantum entanglement might relate to consciousness. The brain is a physical system. Neural activity involves ions crossing membranes and neurotransmitters binding to receptors. All of this is ultimately quantum mechanics. Individual molecules and atoms following quantum rules. Could quantum entanglement play a functional role in cognition? Could the unity of conscious experience reflect quantum coherence across neural structures? These questions venture beyond established science into speculation, but they are motivated by genuine mysteries about how consciousness arises from physical processes. The hard problem of consciousness is explaining how subjective experience emerges from objective physical activity. Why is there something it is like to be conscious? Why does seeing red feel like anything at all, rather than being merely information processing? Classical physics offers no answer. Neural signals can be described completely in terms of electrical potentials and molecular concentrations. Nothing in these descriptions explains why they should be accompanied by subjective experience. The explanatory gap between physical description and phenomenal experience appears unbridgeable within classical frameworks. Some argue quantum mechanics might provide resources for addressing this problem. Entanglement creates genuine physical connections transcending classical description. Measurement involves observer and observed in ways classical physics does not. Perhaps consciousness requires quantum processes. Perhaps the unified field of awareness reflects quantum coherence binding distributed neural activity. Perhaps quantum measurement and collapse involve consciousness in some fundamental way. The Copenhagen interpretation's emphasis on measurement and observers hints at such possibilities. But most neuroscientists and physicists are skeptical. The brain is warm and wet. Quantum coherence is fragile. Thermal fluctuations destroy superposition and entanglement almost instantly at biological temperatures. Decoherence times for molecular scale systems at body temperature are measured in femtoseconds, trillionths of a second. Neural processes operate on millisecond timescales, thousands of times slower. How could quantum effects persist long enough to influence cognition when the environment constantly destroys quantum coherence? Proponents respond with proposals involving specialized biological structures. Microtubules, protein cylinders that form the cytoskeleton of cells, including neurons. These structures might provide environments where quantum coherence persists longer than in bulk solution. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff developed orchestrated objective reduction theory, proposing that quantum computations in microtubules generate consciousness. Superposition in tubulin, proteins collapses through gravitational effects, creating conscious moments. The theory is specific and testable, but experimental evidence remains lacking. Most researchers favor classical explanations for consciousness: neural networks, information integration, feedback loops. These generate complex behavior and might account for subjective experience without invoking quantum mechanics. The brain's computational power arises from its network structure, not quantum effects. Consciousness might be what complex information processing feels like from the inside, an emergent property of classical neural activity. Quantum mechanics might be irrelevant to understanding mind and cognition. But the connection between quantum mechanics and consciousness refuses to die completely. The measurement problem remains unsolved. What constitutes a measurement? When does the wave function collapse? Classical measuring devices are built from quantum components. Where is the boundary between quantum and classical? If consciousness involves measurement and observation in some essential way, then understanding consciousness might require resolving quantum measurement theory. The questions intertwine, even if direct quantum effects in the brain are negligible. This brings us to an even more radical possibility. If quantum entanglement connects particles across arbitrary distances, if measurement and observation play fundamental roles in quantum mechanics, if consciousness might involve quantum processes, then perhaps there exist broader connections between consciousness and the quantum structure of reality. Perhaps the universe is not just mechanistic particles following deterministic or random laws. Perhaps consciousness is woven into the fabric of existence in ways we do not yet understand. Perhaps quantum entanglement hints at connections deeper than physics has yet discovered. These ideas venture beyond current science into speculation and metaphysics, but they emerge from attempting to understand what quantum mechanics reveals about reality. The universe demonstrably violates local realism. Objects separated by arbitrary distances show impossible correlations. The independence of distant systems is an illusion, or at least not fundamental. Reality is interconnected in ways that transcend space as we understand it. What other connections might exist that we have not yet detected? What other aspects of existence might be linked through mechanisms beyond current physical theories? Quantum entanglement proves that the universe is stranger than classical physics suggested. Einstein's reasonable assumptions about locality and realism do not hold. Nature operates according to rules that violate our deepest intuitions about cause and effect and the independence of distant objects. This one established fact opens the door to questions we are only beginning to formulate. About the nature of space and time, about the relationship between mind and matter, about whether reality is fundamentally quantum or whether quantum mechanics itself emerges from something deeper. The experiments are clear, the theory is tested and confirmed. Quantum entanglement is real. Two particles can be connected such that measuring one instantly reveals information about the other regardless of separation. This is not classical correlation, not pre-programmed instructions, but genuine, non-local quantum correlation that violates Bell's inequality and exceeds any classical explanation. The universe allows instantaneous connections across space. Distance does not separate entangled particles in the way classical physics assumed. Reality is fundamentally non-local, or fundamentally non-real, or both. Einstein spent his final decades resisting this conclusion, developing alternative theories, arguing quantum mechanics must be incomplete, insisting that God does not play dice with the universe, but experiments have spoken. Nature violates Bell's inequality. Quantum mechanics is vindicated. Einstein was wrong about the fundamental nature of reality. The universe is stranger than he could accept, more deeply interconnected, more resistant to classical description, more mysterious in its ultimate structure. This is what we face when we probe nature at its most fundamental level, not the comfortable clockwork universe where every effect has a local cause and distant objects are truly independent, but a quantum universe where particles separated by billions of kilometers remain instantaneously connected, where measurement here affects outcomes there without any signal traveling between them, where the fabric of reality contains threads linking all things in ways that transcend space and time as we perceive them. And if this is true for particles, what else might be connected in ways we do not yet understand? This is the question that drives the next part of our exploration. If quantum mechanics allows non-local connections between particles, could similar connections exist between minds, between conscious experiences? Could the apparent separateness of individual consciousnesses be as illusory as the apparent separateness of entangled particles? Could quantum mechanics provide the bridge between the physics of particles and the reality of subjective experience? These questions lead us into uncertain territory, beyond established physics, into hypotheses and speculation. But they are motivated by real phenomena. Quantum entanglement exists. It violates our classical intuitions. It suggests the universe is fundamentally interconnected. Understanding what this means requires exploring not just physics, but the relationship between physical reality and conscious experience, between the quantum world and the world of minds, between the non-local correlations of entangled particles and the unity of conscious awareness. This is where we turn next, to the strange relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness, to proposals that measurement requires observers in some fundamental sense, to the possibility that understanding reality fully requires understanding not just particles and forces, but awareness and experience, to the intersection of physics and philosophy, where the hardest questions about existence await. The universe is non-local. Quantum entanglement proves it. What that ultimately means for reality, and for us as conscious beings observing that reality, remains to be discovered. There is an experiment that will convince you. Reality does not exist until you observe it. Take a single photon, a quantum of light, send it toward a barrier with two slits. Classical physics predicts the photon passes through one slit or the other, like firing a bullet at a wall with two openings. The bullet goes through one opening. You can determine which one by placing detectors at each slit. Simple, intuitive, wrong. When you perform this experiment without measuring which slit the photon passes through, you do not get the pattern you expect. You do not see photons arriving as if they pass through one slit or the other. Instead, you see an interference pattern, alternating bright and dark bands on the detection screen. This pattern can only arise if the photon somehow passes through both slits simultaneously, if it interferes with itself, if it exists as a wave spread across space rather than a particle localized at a single point. But here is what breaks reality. Place detectors at the slits to determine which path the photon takes. The interference pattern disappears, instantly, completely. Now the photon behaves like a classical particle, passing through one slit or the other, never both. The act of measurement changes the outcome, not through any mechanical disturbance. The detector can be arbitrarily gentle. It can absorb negligible energy from the photon. Yet the mere fact of measurement transforms the photon's behavior from wave-like to particle-like, from passing through both slits to passing through one. This is the observer effect, the measurement problem, the deepest mystery in quantum mechanics. Observation does not merely reveal pre-existing reality, it participates in creating that reality. Before measurement, the photon exists in superposition, both paths simultaneously. The wave function describes this superposition mathematically. When measurement occurs, the wave function collapses. Superposition ends. One outcome becomes actual, the others cease to exist, or perhaps they occur in parallel universes. Or perhaps measurement reveals hidden variables we cannot access. The interpretations differ, but the experimental fact remains. Observation changes reality. Picture what this means. You are standing in a dark room, completely dark. No light sources. Your eyes cannot detect anything. According to quantum mechanics, the atoms in the walls exist in superposition. Their electrons occupy multiple energy levels simultaneously. Their positions are fundamentally uncertain. The room's physical properties are indeterminate. Now you turn on a light. Photons scatter from the walls into your eyes. You observe the room. The wave functions collapse. The atoms snap into definite states. Their electrons occupy specific energy levels. Their positions become determined within measurement precision. You have not merely illuminated a pre-existing room, you have forced the room into definite existence through observation. This seems absurd. The room obviously exists whether or not you observe it. The walls were there in the dark. Their atoms occupied definite positions. The building did not wink in and out of existence as you turned the lights on and off. Common sense rebels against the notion that observation creates reality. Yet quantum mechanics and countless experiments insist that at the fundamental level, physical systems do not possess definite properties until measured. Superposition is real. Wave function collapse is real. Measurement transforms possibility into actuality. Niels Bohr and the Copenhagen interpretation embraced this conclusion fully. In their view, quantum mechanics is complete. The wave function provides the maximum possible knowledge about physical systems. There are no hidden variables determining outcomes in advance. Particles genuinely do not have definite positions or momenta or spins before measurement. They exist as potentiality, as superposition, as wave functions describing probability distributions over possible outcomes. Measurement selects one outcome from many possibilities. Which outcome occurs is fundamentally random, irreducibly probabilistic. The universe contains genuine chance at its foundations. But this raises an immediate question. What constitutes measurement? When does wave function collapse occur? Does it require a conscious observer, or will any physical interaction suffice? Can an unconscious detector collapse wave functions? What about a rock? A molecule? Where is the boundary between quantum superposition and classical definiteness? Bohr avoided answering definitively. He insisted on a division between quantum systems and classical measuring apparatus. The apparatus must be described classically to provide meaningful measurement results. But measuring devices are built from quantum components, atoms and electrons obeying quantum mechanics. Where exactly does the quantum classical transition occur? Bohr maintained this was a pragmatic rather than fundamental division. We choose to describe measuring devices classically because that is how we experience them. The choice is contextual, not absolute. This answer satisfied some physicists but troubled others. It seems to place consciousness, or at least macroscopic observation, in a privileged position. Eugene Wigner took this implication seriously. He argued that wave function collapse requires consciousness. Only a conscious observer can transform potentiality into actuality. Physical interactions alone cannot collapse wave functions, because the combined system of quantum object plus physical detector simply evolves into entangled superposition. Both detector states exist simultaneously until a conscious observer examines the detector. Consciousness stands outside the quantum mechanical system. It is the only thing capable of genuine wave function collapse. This leads to bizarre conclusions. Wigner imagined a friend isolated in a laboratory measuring the spin of a particle. From the friend's perspective, the measurement occurs, and the wave function collapses to a definite outcome. But from Wigner's perspective outside the laboratory, his friend and the particle exist in entangled superposition. Both measurement outcomes coexist until Wigner opens the laboratory and observes his friend. Only then does the wave function collapse from Wigner's perspective. Two conscious observers experience different realities. The friend experiences definite outcomes. Wigner experiences superposition. When they compare notes, reality somehow reconciles these incompatible descriptions. This Wigner's friend paradox highlights the measurement problem's severity. If consciousness collapses wave functions, whose consciousness counts? Does the friend's observation collapse the wave function, or does it require Wigner's observation? What if Wigner is observed by someone else? Does the chain extend infinitely? At what point does reality become definite? The paradox has no satisfactory resolution within Copenhagen interpretation. It suggests either consciousness has strange, non-local properties, or the entire framework requires revision. Many physicists reject consciousness-based collapse entirely. They argue decoherence explains the quantum classical transition without invoking observers. When a quantum system interacts with its environment, it becomes entangled with countless environmental degrees of freedom. This entanglement rapidly destroys quantum coherence. Superposition still exists in principle, but it becomes impossible to observe interference between different states. The system behaves classically for all practical purposes, even though unitarily evolving according to Schrödinger's equation. Measurement is just severe environmental interaction, nothing special, no consciousness required. Decoherence is well established experimentally. Quantum superpositions do become classical appearing through environmental coupling. Timescales are incredibly short. For a dust grain 1 micrometer across at room temperature, decoherence occurs in 10^-31 seconds, a time so brief it makes femtoseconds seem like geological eons. This explains why we never see macroscopic superpositions, why cats are never both alive and dead, why chairs and tables and buildings exist in definite states. Environmental decoherence prevents observable quantum effects at large scales. But decoherence does not solve the measurement problem completely. It explains why superposition becomes unobservable, not why one outcome becomes actual. The wave function describing system plus environment still contains all outcomes in superposition. Decoherence shows why we cannot see interference. It does not explain why measurement produces one result rather than another. The many worlds interpretation addresses this by claiming all results occur in different branches. But most interpretations still require wave function collapse, something that selects one outcome, and what performs that selection remains mysterious. Consider Schrödinger's famous cat, a thought experiment designed to ridicule the Copenhagen interpretation. A cat is placed in a sealed box with a quantum device, a radioactive atom with 50% probability of decaying within 1 hour. If the atom decays, it triggers a mechanism that breaks a vial of poison, killing the cat. After 1 hour, according to quantum mechanics, the atom exists in superposition of decayed and undecayed states. This entangles with the device, which entangles with the poison vial, which entangles with the cat. The entire system enters superposition. The cat is simultaneously alive and dead. Both states coexist until someone opens the box and observes the cat. Only then does the wave function collapse, selecting one outcome. Schrödinger intended this to be absurd, to demonstrate that quantum mechanics cannot be complete because it leads to ridiculous conclusions about macroscopic objects. Cats are never both alive and dead. Opening the box reveals what already happened, not determines what happens. But the Copenhagen interpretation accepts the conclusion. The cat genuinely exists in superposition until observed. Opening the box collapses the wave function. Observation creates definite reality. Decoherence theorists argue the cat's interaction with air molecules and photons and the box's interior causes rapid decoherence. The superposition becomes unobservable almost instantly. The cat is effectively either alive or dead long before anyone opens the box, even though the full wave function still contains both states. Many worlds' interpretation claims the cat is both alive and dead, but in different branches of reality. Opening the box does not determine the outcome, but reveals which branch we inhabit. We see a live cat or dead cat with equal probability, but both exist in the larger quantum multiverse. Each interpretation has merit and problems. Copenhagen requires mysterious collapse. Many worlds requires infinite proliferating universes. Decoherence explains classical appearance, but not unique outcomes. Pilot wave theories introduce non-local hidden variables. Objective collapse theories require new physics beyond standard quantum mechanics. No consensus exists. The measurement problem remains unsolved after nearly a century of quantum mechanics. This brings us back to consciousness. If measurement is mysterious, if collapse requires explanation, if observation seems to play a fundamental role, then perhaps consciousness is indeed relevant to quantum mechanics. Not necessarily that consciousness causes collapse, but that understanding consciousness might require understanding quantum measurement, that the hard problem of consciousness and the measurement problem might be related. That subjective experience and wave function collapse might both reflect aspects of reality not captured by current physical theories. The hard problem of consciousness is explaining why there is something it is like to be conscious, why subjective experience exists at all. Neural activity can be described completely in physical terms: electrical potentials, chemical concentrations, molecular binding. But nothing in these descriptions explains why they should be accompanied by the feeling of seeing red, the taste of coffee, the experience of pain. Why is there phenomenal consciousness rather than mere information processing? Classical physics offers no purchase on this problem. Neural signals are just electrons and ions following electromagnetic forces. Classical descriptions are third-person, objective. They describe behavior and function but not experience. The explanatory gap between objective physical description and subjective phenomenal experience seems unbridgeable within classical frameworks. Adding more detail about neural mechanisms does not address why those mechanisms should feel like anything. The hard problem remains hard. Some philosophers argue consciousness is fundamental, not reducible to physics, an irreducible aspect of reality, like space and time and mass. Panpsychism takes this furthest. It proposes that consciousness or proto-consciousness exists everywhere. Every particle has some minimal subjective aspect. Complex consciousness in humans arises by combining these fundamental conscious elements. The combination problem asks how micro-experiences combine into unified macro-experience, but at least Panpsychism acknowledges consciousness as a fundamental feature of reality rather than an inexplicable, emergent property. Quantum mechanics might provide resources for such theories. If observation plays a fundamental role in quantum mechanics, if measurement requires something beyond mere physical interaction, then perhaps consciousness is that something. Perhaps the wave function represents reality from the objective third-person view, and consciousness represents reality from the subjective first-person view, two aspects of the same underlying reality. Measurement is where these aspects meet, where the objective potentiality of the wave function crystallizes into subjective actuality of experience. This is speculative, very speculative. Most physicists and neuroscientists reject any essential connection between quantum mechanics and consciousness, but some researchers pursue it seriously. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff developed orchestrated objective reduction theory, or. This proposes that consciousness involves quantum computations in microtubules inside neurons. Microtubules are protein structures forming the cytoskeleton, hollow tubes made of tubulin proteins. These proteins can exist in different conformational states. Penrose and Hameroff propose these states can enter quantum superposition. The theory suggests tubulin proteins across many neurons become entangled, forming quantum coherent states. These states perform quantum computations, integrating information across the brain. When the superposition reaches a threshold related to quantum gravity effects, objective reduction occurs. The wave function collapses not through measurement but through gravitational self-energy exceeding a certain level. This collapse moment is suggested to be a conscious event, a moment of awareness. The theory proposes consciousness arises from orchestrated quantum collapses in neural microtubules. The proposal is specific enough to be testable. It requires quantum coherence in microtubules at biological temperatures. Most physicists are skeptical. The brain is warm and wet. Thermal noise should destroy quantum coherence almost instantly. Decoherence times for molecular structures at body temperature are typically femtoseconds. Neural processes operate on millisecond timescales. How could quantum coherence persist 1,000,000 times longer than expected? Hameroff argues microtubules provide a protected environment. The hollow interior might shield quantum states from environmental decoherence. Ordered water in the tube might participate in coherence. Some experimental evidence suggests quantum effects in microtubules at room temperature might last longer than naive estimates predict. But the results remain controversial, and replication has been inconsistent. More fundamentally, even if quantum coherence exists in microtubules, why would this generate consciousness? Quantum computation might provide functional advantages: faster information processing, more efficient neural communication. But computational efficiency does not explain subjective experience. A quantum computer performs calculations, but presumably does not experience anything. Why would quantum processes in neurons be different? The hard problem persists even if the brain exploits quantum mechanics. Penrose suggests quantum gravity effects might be relevant. Standard quantum mechanics is probabilistic but deterministic at the wave function level. Schrödinger's equation evolves wave functions predictably. Only measurement introduces randomness through collapse. Penrose proposes that gravity causes objective reduction. When a superposition involves sufficient mass-energy difference between states, space-time itself becomes superposed. This is unstable. Space-time cannot simultaneously have different geometries. The instability causes spontaneous collapse, selecting one geometry. This occurs without measurement. It is objective rather than observer-induced. If conscious moments correspond to these objective collapses, then consciousness involves quantum gravity. The feeling of making a decision might correlate with quantum superposition in neural microtubules collapsing through gravitational effects. Free will might reflect genuine quantum randomness in collapse outcomes. Subjective experience might be what objective reduction feels like from the inside. The theory connects consciousness to fundamental physics in a specific way, but it requires extending quantum mechanics with gravitational collapse mechanisms not yet observed or theoretically validated. Most neuroscientists favor classical explanations. The brain is a neural network. Complex patterns of electrical and chemical activity generate consciousness. Information integration across distributed neural populations creates unified subjective experience. Global workspace theory proposes consciousness arises when information becomes globally available to multiple brain systems simultaneously. Integrated information theory quantifies consciousness as the amount of integrated information a system generates. These theories explain many features of consciousness without invoking quantum mechanics, but they still face the hard problem. Why does information integration feel like anything? Why is there subjective experience of the integrated information rather than mere unconscious processing? Classical theories describe the functional properties of consciousness. Which information is accessible? How different processes communicate? What systems must be active for reportable awareness? These are important questions, but they do not address phenomenal experience itself. The redness of red, the painfulness of pain, the unified field of awareness binding all experience into singular subjectivity. Perhaps consciousness requires quantum mechanics, not because brains exploit quantum effects for computation, but because consciousness itself is quantum mechanical in nature, because subjective experience is the inner aspect of quantum states. Because the first-person perspective is not reducible to third-person physical description within classical physics, but might be described within quantum mechanics. This would not mean brains need quantum coherence. Classical neural activity might still generate consciousness. But understanding what consciousness is and why it exists might require quantum theory. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics already hint at such connections. The von Neumann-Wigner interpretation explicitly places consciousness outside quantum mechanics. Consciousness collapses wave functions. It is the measurement apparatus that cannot itself be measured. This seems to give consciousness fundamental status. It is not reducible to physics, because it is the thing that makes definite physical reality possible through observation. But this creates more problems than it solves. How does consciousness collapse wave functions? Through what mechanism? Does every conscious being collapse wave functions independently? What about animal consciousness? Insect consciousness? Does an ant collapse wave functions? Where does consciousness begin in evolutionary history? Did the universe exist in eternal superposition before conscious observers evolved? These questions have no clear answers. Other approaches try to make consciousness and physics fit together more naturally. Integrated information theory proposes that consciousness is identical to integrated information. This is a mathematical quantity, measurable in principle for any system. Human brains generate high integrated information. Simple systems generate little. The theory provides a quantitative measure of consciousness degree. Some applications suggest it might predict which brain states are conscious and which are not. But whether integrated information truly captures phenomenal consciousness remains disputed. What if consciousness and quantum mechanics are related not through collapse mechanisms or neural quantum computation, but through something more fundamental? What if the universe has an intrinsic experiential aspect corresponding to its quantum mechanical structure? What if mind and matter are two aspects of some deeper reality? These questions lead us toward Panpsychism and neutral monism, philosophical positions that reject the matter-only worldview of physicalism without embracing full substance dualism. Panpsychism proposes consciousness, or proto-consciousness, is fundamental and ubiquitous. Particles have minimal experiential properties. Complex consciousness emerges by combining these micro-experiences. This sounds bizarre from a physicalist perspective. Why would electrons have experience? But it addresses the hard problem directly. Consciousness is not emergent from non-conscious components. It exists at all levels. Human consciousness is complex because brains are complex, but even simple systems have simple consciousness. Experience goes all the way down. The combination problem asks how micro-experiences combine into macro-experience. How do countless particle experiences become one human consciousness? This is difficult. It seems to require mechanisms by which separate subjects merge into unified subjects. Classical physics offers no such mechanisms, but quantum mechanics might. Quantum entanglement creates genuine non-classical correlations between particles. Could entangled particles share or merge their proto-conscious aspects? Could quantum coherence enable unified subjective experience across distributed components? This is speculation piled on speculation. There is no experimental evidence for particle consciousness, no testable predictions about how proto-experiences might combine. The philosophical arguments are suggestive, but far from conclusive. Most scientists reject Panpsychism as unfalsifiable metaphysics, but it represents one way to connect consciousness with fundamental physics, to take the measurement problem and the hard problem as hints that our current physical theories are incomplete in ways related to subjectivity and observation. Another possibility is that space and time themselves emerge from more fundamental quantum structures. Some approaches to quantum gravity suggest space-time is not fundamental, but arises from entanglement patterns in quantum systems. If space emerges from entanglement, perhaps consciousness also relates to these fundamental quantum structures. Perhaps the unity of conscious experience reflects the same non-local quantum correlations that create spatial relationships. This would not mean consciousness is quantum mechanical in the sense of requiring coherence or superposition, but that consciousness and space both emerge from deeper quantum substrate. These ideas venture far beyond established science. They are motivated by genuine mysteries. Why does measurement seem to require observers? Why does consciousness exist at all? Why can we not explain subjective experience through objective physical description? Standard approaches treat these as separate problems. Measurement is just physics. Consciousness is just neuroscience. But perhaps they are related. Perhaps solving one requires progress on the other. Perhaps the universe is telling us through quantum mechanics that observers are not incidental but essential to reality. Or perhaps we are reading too much into quantum mechanics. Perhaps consciousness is entirely classical, neural networks following ordinary physics. Perhaps measurement requires no special explanation. Decoherence plus many worlds explains everything. Perhaps the appearance of observer dependence in quantum mechanics reflects our limited ability to track environmental interactions, not fundamental connections between mind and matter. Perhaps consciousness and measurement are coincidentally mysterious but ultimately unrelated. The question remains open. Quantum mechanics is nearly a century old. Consciousness has puzzled philosophers for millennia. Both remain deeply mysterious. Whether their mysteries are connected is unknown. But the parallels are striking. Both involve the relationship between possibility and actuality, potential and definite, objective and subjective, wave function and measurement outcome, physical process and phenomenal experience. Understanding either fully might require understanding both together. This is where we stand at the intersection of quantum mechanics and consciousness. With established experimental facts about measurement and observation, with profound philosophical puzzles about subjective experience, with speculative theories attempting to connect them, with no consensus about whether the connection is real or illusory, the measurement problem persists, the hard problem persists, and the possibility remains that they are two aspects of a deeper mystery about the nature of reality and our place within it. What we do know is this: measurement changes quantum systems in ways that cannot be explained as mere disturbance. Observation participates in creating definite reality from quantum possibility. This is not interpretation. It is experimental fact confirmed in countless experiments. Why this is true remains mysterious. How consciousness fits into this picture remains unknown. But the door is open. The question is live. And the answer, when we find it, might transform our understanding of both physics and mind, far beyond anything current theories suggest. The universe is strange at its foundations. Quantum mechanics proves this. Consciousness is strange in its very existence. Philosophy proves this. Whether these two strangeness are related is perhaps the deepest question we can ask, and exploring possible answers leads us to the final and most speculative territory. If quantum mechanics connects particles across space through entanglement, if consciousness might relate to quantum measurement, then could there be connections between conscious minds? Could the apparent separateness of individual awareness be as illusory as the separateness of entangled particles? Could the universe have a conscious aspect that transcends individual observers? These questions push beyond science into metaphysics, but they emerge naturally from taking quantum mechanics and consciousness seriously, from asking what the universe is really like, from refusing to accept that the deepest mysteries will remain forever mysterious. This is where we turn next, to universal consciousness, to cosmic awareness, to the possibility that mind and matter and quantum reality form some integrated whole we are only beginning to glimpse. There is a possibility that will change how you understand your place in the cosmos. Every thought you have ever experienced, every sensation, every moment of awareness in your entire life. These might not be isolated events occurring inside a biological brain, fundamentally separate from the rest of reality. They might be the universe experiencing itself, localized instances of cosmic awareness, temporarily focused through the particular structure of your neural architecture. You might not be a separate consciousness, observing the universe from outside. You might be the universe observing itself from within. This sounds like mysticism, like vague spiritual philosophy disconnected from rigorous science, but it emerges from taking seriously what quantum mechanics and consciousness research might be telling us. If quantum entanglement connects particles across arbitrary distances in ways that transcend spatial separation, if consciousness involves something beyond classical neural computation, if observation plays a fundamental role in quantum mechanics, then perhaps the apparent separateness of individual minds is as illusory as the apparent separateness of entangled particles. Perhaps consciousness is not generated by brains but focused through them. Perhaps awareness is a fundamental feature of reality itself. Picture the most radical version of this idea. The universe is not fundamentally composed of unconscious matter that accidentally generated consciousness through biological evolution. Instead, consciousness, or proto-consciousness, exists at the most basic level of reality. Every particle, every quantum field, every geometric point in space-time, each possesses some minimal subjective aspect, some infinitesimal degree of what it is like to be that thing. Human consciousness arises when billions of these micro-conscious elements combine into the complex integrated system we call a brain. But the consciousness was already there at the foundation. We did not create it, we organized it. This is Panpsychism, one of the oldest philosophical positions about the nature of mind and matter, historically dismissed by science as untestable mysticism, but recently experiencing renewed interest from philosophers and some physicists, not because new evidence supports it, but because the alternatives face severe problems. Materialism cannot explain consciousness, cannot bridge the explanatory gap from objective neural activity to subjective experience. Dualism creates impossible interaction problems. How does immaterial mind affect material brain? Panpsychism offers a third option. Mind and matter are not separate substances. Consciousness is intrinsic to matter itself at all scales. The immediate objection is obvious. Electrons are not conscious. Rocks do not have experiences. Tables and chairs do not feel anything. This seems self-evidently true. How could panpsychism possibly be correct when the vast majority of matter shows no signs of consciousness whatsoever? The answer panpsychists give is that consciousness comes in degrees. Electrons might have infinitesimally simple proto-conscious states, not thoughts or feelings or perceptions, but some minimal subjective aspect, some primitive intrinsic nature beyond their objective physical properties. Rocks have slightly more complex consciousness, reflecting their atomic structure, but nothing remotely like human awareness. Only highly organized systems like brains generate the complex, integrated consciousness we recognize. But this raises the combination problem. How do microconscious particles combine into macroconscious subjects? When two electrons are near each other, do their proto-experiences merge? When a billion neurons fire in coordinated patterns, how do a billion separate conscious subjects become one unified human consciousness? This seems impossible. Consciousness appears unified. You experience one stream of awareness, not billions of separate micro-experiences happening simultaneously. How does combination work? Panpsychists have various answers. Some propose that combination is fundamental. Micro-experiences naturally merge when physical systems become integrated. The subjective aspect follows the physical structure. When particles become entangled or systems become interconnected, their consciousness combines correspondingly. Others suggest consciousness was never truly separate. Individual particles appear distinct in our classical description, but at the quantum level, separation is illusory. Entanglement and quantum correlations mean particles are already unified. Their consciousness reflects this underlying unity. This connects to quantum mechanics in intriguing ways. Classical physics treats particles as fundamentally separate. Interactions between them are local. One particle's state does not depend on distant particles. But quantum entanglement violates this separation. Entangled particles form a single quantum system. Measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance. The particles are not truly separate even when spatially distant. They remain components of one unified quantum state. Could consciousness work similarly? Perhaps individual conscious experiences appear separate in the same way particles appear separate classically. But at a deeper level, consciousness is unified. When human brains think, they are not creating consciousness from nothing. They are focusing and organizing the fundamental consciousness already present in their quantum constituents. The unified subjective experience reflects the quantum coherence and entanglement within neural structures. Separateness is the illusion. Unity is fundamental. This is highly speculative. Most neuroscientists reject it entirely. Consciousness arises from neural computation. Specific patterns of activity in specific brain regions generate specific experiences. Damage those regions, and you lose those experiences. Consciousness depends on brain structure and function. It cannot exist independently of brains. The idea that particles have proto-consciousness has no empirical support and makes no testable predictions. It is metaphysics, not science. But some researchers argue we should take panpsychism seriously precisely because the alternatives fail. We have no good materialist explanation for why consciousness exists at all. No classical physical theory can derive subjective experience from objective processes. The hard problem remains hard after decades of neuroscience progress. Perhaps we need to expand our ontology. Accept that reality has both physical and experiential aspects at all levels. This does not mean abandoning science. It means recognizing that physical description might be incomplete, that the objective third-person perspective captures only part of what exists. Integrated information theory provides a more scientific approach to these ideas. Developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi, IIT proposes that consciousness is identical to integrated information. This is a mathematical quantity that can be calculated for any system. It measures how much information the system generates beyond what its parts generate independently. How much the whole exceeds the sum of the parts. Systems with high integrated information are highly conscious. Systems with low integrated information have minimal or no consciousness. Human brains generate enormous integrated information, billions of neurons interconnected in specific patterns. Information flows through these networks in ways that cannot be reduced to independent neural activity. The integration creates something new, something that feels like unified subjective experience. According to IIT, this integrated information is consciousness, not a separate entity caused by neural activity, but identical to the information integration itself. Consciousness is what high integrated information is from the inside. IIT makes specific predictions. It suggests that certain brain states should be conscious, while others are not based on their information integration level. Deep sleep with minimal integration should involve little consciousness. Dream sleep with moderate integration should involve moderate consciousness. Waking states with high integration should involve rich consciousness. Early evidence supports these predictions, but the theory remains controversial and difficult to test fully. More radically, IIT implies consciousness exists wherever integrated information exists, not just in brains. Any system that integrates information possesses some degree of consciousness proportional to its integration measure. A thermostat has minimal integrated information and thus minimal consciousness. A computer might have more, a brain has vastly more, but consciousness is not special to biology. It is a feature of certain types of information processing, regardless of substrate. This sounds like Panpsychism but with mathematics. IIT provides a quantitative measure rather than vague philosophical claims about proto-consciousness. You can calculate integrated information in principle. You can determine which systems should be conscious and how conscious they should be. The theory is falsifiable. If brain states predicted to be conscious are reported as unconscious or vice versa, the theory fails. This is genuine science, not mere metaphysics. But IIT faces serious challenges. The integrated information calculation is computationally intractable for large systems. You cannot actually calculate it for a human brain with current or foreseeable technology. The theory relies on axioms about consciousness that might be questioned, and it leads to strange conclusions. IIT suggests that certain simple systems might have more consciousness than complex ones if they integrate information more efficiently. A specially designed grid of interconnected elements might be more conscious than a human brain. This seems wrong, but follows from the mathematics. Nevertheless, IIT represents an attempt to take consciousness seriously as a fundamental feature of reality while remaining scientific. It provides a bridge between purely materialist neuroscience and panpsychist philosophy. Whether the bridge is solid or illusory remains debated, but the effort matters. We need frameworks that acknowledge consciousness while remaining empirically grounded. Now, consider the most extreme extension of these ideas. If consciousness is fundamental and ubiquitous, if quantum entanglement connects all matter, if information integration generates awareness, then perhaps the universe as a whole possesses consciousness. Not because some cosmic entity created consciousness, but because the universe is the ultimate integrated information system. All matter and energy interconnected through quantum fields and gravitational interactions. Everything affecting everything else in ways we are only beginning to understand. The cosmos might be the most conscious thing that exists, and individual human consciousness might be localized instances of cosmic awareness. This is where science gives way entirely to speculation. There is no evidence for universal consciousness, no testable predictions, no mathematical framework that would distinguish conscious universe from unconscious one. But the idea is ancient, found in many mystical and philosophical traditions. Advaita, Vedanta in Hinduism, certain interpretations of Buddhism, Western philosophers like Spinoza and Hegel. The notion that ultimate reality is consciousness itself, that separation between self and universe is illusion, that enlightenment involves recognizing one's true identity as cosmic awareness, temporarily focused through individual form. Modern physics adds interesting dimensions to these old ideas. Quantum entanglement suggests reality is fundamentally non-local and interconnected. Particles across the universe remain correlated through their shared quantum origins. Everything that exists emerged from the Big Bang. Everything was once compressed into an infinitesimal region. Everything was once quite literally the same thing. The expansion of space has separated matter into apparently distinct objects, but at the quantum level, correlations persist. The universe remembers its unified origin. Could consciousness work similarly? Perhaps all awareness stems from some primordial, unified cosmic consciousness. As the universe expanded and complexified, this consciousness fractured into countless localized instances. Each conscious being experiences a subset of the total cosmic awareness. Humans experience the portion focused through their particular neural structure. Other beings experience different portions through their structures, but fundamentally, all consciousness is one consciousness, experiencing itself through multiple simultaneous perspectives. This would explain the deep sense many people report during certain experiences that the boundary between self and universe is not fundamental. Meditation, psychedelic states, mystical experiences. These often involve feelings of unity with everything, of dissolving into cosmic wholeness, of recognizing that the self is not truly separate but part of some larger consciousness. Perhaps these experiences reflect genuine insight, not delusion but seeing through the illusion of separation to the underlying unity. But there are obvious problems with this interpretation. These experiences might be neurological artifacts, changes in brain activity that create false sense of unity without reflecting actual metaphysical truth. The brain constructs the sense of separate self through specific neural processes. Disrupt those processes, and the self-boundary dissolves. This does not mean the boundary was illusory, just that the brain stopped maintaining it. Mystical experiences might tell us about brain function, not cosmic consciousness. Moreover, universal consciousness faces the same combination problem as panpsychism, but worse. How do billions of human consciousnesses all be one cosmic consciousness? When you think a thought, does the universe think it? When someone suffers, does the cosmos suffer? If all consciousness is one, why does it appear so thoroughly fragmented? Why do individual humans have completely separate experiences with no access to each other's subjective states? The appearance of separation is so complete and consistent that positing underlying unity seems like wishful thinking rather than serious hypothesis. Defenders might respond that apparent separation is precisely what we should expect if the universe explores itself through multiple perspectives. To fully experience reality, cosmic consciousness must fragment into countless viewpoints. Each viewpoint experiences from one location and perspective. This provides the universe information about itself that unified consciousness could not obtain. You are the universe's way of experiencing what it is like to be a human in the early 21st century on Earth. Your unique perspective contributes to the cosmic totality. Other beings contribute other perspectives. Together, all perspectives constitute the universe's complete self-knowledge. This is beautiful philosophy, but impossible to test. No experiment could distinguish universal consciousness from no consciousness. The universe behaves the same either way. Physical laws describe matter and energy interactions, regardless of whether those interactions have experiential aspects. Science requires testable predictions. Universal consciousness makes none. It is metaphysics. Interesting perhaps, comforting to some, but not science. Most scientists reject cosmic consciousness entirely. The universe is matter and energy following physical laws. Consciousness is a byproduct of evolution in biological systems. It arose because brains that modeled their environment and generated subjective experience had survival advantages. There is no cosmic consciousness, no universal awareness, just localized pockets of awareness arising from complex information processing in nervous systems scattered across an otherwise unconscious cosmos. This is the standard scientific view, and it faces no serious challenge from empirical evidence. Yet the question persists. Why does consciousness exist at all? Why is there subjective experience? Why is there something it is like to be rather than mere unconscious information processing? These questions have no answers within standard scientific frameworks. Perhaps they have no answers at all. Perhaps they are confused, questions arising from category errors or linguistic confusion. But perhaps they point to genuine gaps in our understanding, to aspects of reality not captured by current physical theories, to the possibility that mind is as fundamental as matter and requires its own set of principles distinct from physics. If we take this possibility seriously, if we accept that consciousness might be fundamental, then cosmic consciousness becomes less absurd, not proven, not likely even, but at least conceptually coherent. If consciousness exists at all levels from particles to people, then why not at the cosmic scale? If integration generates consciousness, then the universe is the ultimate integrated system. All matter and energy causally connected through fields and forces, operating across space and time. The amount of integrated information in the cosmos dwarfs any individual brain by incomprehensible margins. Perhaps cosmic consciousness is not just possible, but inevitable, given panpsychist assumptions. But we must be honest about what we are doing here. We are speculating far beyond established science. We are combining the genuine mystery of consciousness with the genuine mystery of quantum mechanics, and arriving at grandiose conclusions that feel profound but lack empirical grounding. This is philosophy, not physics. Metaphysics, not science. It might be true. The universe might be conscious. You might be a temporary localization of cosmic awareness. But we have no way to know. No experiment to run. No prediction to test. What we can say is this. Quantum mechanics reveals that reality is deeply strange, non-local, observer-dependent in ways classical physics never suggested. Consciousness exists, and we cannot explain it through conventional physical description. These two facts might be related, might share some common explanation involving aspects of reality not yet captured by our theories, or they might be unrelated mysteries that happen to both be mysterious. We do not know, cannot know, with current understanding. The proper scientific attitude is to remain open while demanding evidence. Quantum consciousness theories deserve investigation if they make testable predictions. Panpsychism deserves consideration as a philosophical position given materialism's failures. Integrated information theory deserves empirical testing against neural data. But universal consciousness remains speculation. Interesting, perhaps even profound, but not established, not proven, not scientific in the strict sense. Still, the questions matter. Even if we cannot answer them now, asking them pushes us to think more deeply about reality, to question assumptions, to explore conceptual possibilities. Science progresses not just through experiment, but through creative theoretical speculation that later generations might vindicate or refute. Perhaps future physics will incorporate consciousness as fundamental. Perhaps neuroscience will explain consciousness entirely through classical mechanisms. Perhaps quantum mechanics and consciousness are utterly unrelated. We stand at the boundary of knowledge, peering into the unknown. Here is what we have learned across these three explorations. Quantum entanglement is real. Two particles can be connected across arbitrary distances, in ways that violate classical intuitions about locality and separateness. Einstein was wrong to dismiss this as impossible. Nature chose non-locality. Measurement plays a strange role in quantum mechanics. Observation affects outcomes in ways we do not fully understand. Whether consciousness is involved remains debated, but the possibility cannot be dismissed without better understanding of what measurement actually is. And consciousness itself remains mysterious. We cannot explain why subjective experience exists through conventional physical theories. This might indicate our theories are incomplete in ways related to observation and awareness. These three facts might be connected. Quantum non-locality might tell us something about consciousness. The measurement problem might require incorporating observers into fundamental physics. Consciousness might be woven into reality at deep levels. Or these might be separate mysteries that seem related because we are confused, because we are asking wrong questions or misunderstanding what the phenomena actually mean. Humility is warranted. The universe has surprised us before. It will surprise us again. But one thing is certain: reality is stranger than common sense suggests. The solid, stable world of classical physics, where objects exist independently and causation is local and consciousness is an accidental byproduct, has given way to quantum weirdness and explanatory gaps and profound mysteries about the nature of existence. We live in a universe where particles are connected across billions of light years, where observation might participate in creating reality, where consciousness arises from matter yet cannot be reduced to it. This is the world quantum mechanics and neuroscience reveal. Deeply strange, profoundly mysterious, resistant to simple explanation. Perhaps future generations will look back on our confusion with amusement, will understand quantum mechanics and consciousness so thoroughly that the mysteries dissolve into obvious solutions we were too primitive to see. Or perhaps these mysteries are fundamental. Perhaps reality is inherently paradoxical at its foundations. Perhaps human understanding has limits, and we are approaching them. Perhaps some questions have no answers because they touch the irreducible strangeness at the heart of existence. Either way, we must continue investigating, continue probing nature with experiments and observations and theoretical creativity. Continue asking difficult questions, even when answers seem impossibly remote. This is what science does, what philosophy does, what conscious beings capable of wondering about their own existence must do. We observe the universe. We think about what we observe. We construct theories and test them and revise them when they fail. Slowly, incrementally, we expand the sphere of understanding into the surrounding darkness of ignorance. Quantum mechanics taught us that reality is non-local. Consciousness research teaches us that subjective experience is real and unexplained. Perhaps these lessons point towards some future synthesis where mind and matter and quantum reality fit together in ways we cannot yet imagine. Or perhaps they are separate truths about separate aspects of existence that happen to both be mysterious without being related. We do not know, cannot know from our current position in the long arc of intellectual history, but we can say this: the universe that contains conscious beings capable of asking why consciousness exists is stranger than any universe that does not. Stranger because consciousness itself is strange, because subjectivity exists alongside objectivity, because experience is woven into the fabric of what is real. We are not outside observers looking at the universe from some privileged, detached position. We are the universe looking at itself. Matter and energy, organized into patterns that generate awareness and wonder and questions about existence. This is not mysticism, it is literal truth. You are made of atoms forged in stellar cores, carbon and oxygen and nitrogen created through nuclear fusion and scattered by supernova explosions. Those atoms assembled through chemistry and biology into the structure, reading these words and thinking these thoughts. The universe made you. You are not separate from it. You are it. A localized pattern of cosmic matter temporarily maintaining organization against entropy's constant pressure toward disorder. And somehow, inexplicably, this organization generates consciousness, generates the inner light of subjective experience that illuminates your particular corner of reality. Whether that inner light connects to some larger cosmic consciousness is speculation. Whether quantum mechanics is relevant to consciousness is unknown. Whether the universe itself is aware cannot be determined scientifically. But what we know for certain is this: consciousness exists. You experience it directly every moment of awareness, and we cannot explain it, cannot derive it from physical laws, cannot bridge the gap between objective neural activity and subjective experience. This explanatory failure might indicate our theories are incomplete, or it might indicate consciousness is fundamental, or it might be a temporary puzzle that future science will solve through better understanding of information and computation and emergence. We stand at the intersection of quantum mechanics and consciousness and cosmic speculation, not knowing which path leads to truth. But standing at that intersection is itself remarkable. That conscious beings evolved on a small planet orbiting an ordinary star can probe the quantum nature of reality and ask about the origins of their own awareness and speculate about cosmic consciousness, shows how strange and wonderful the where universe is. We are the cosmos made self-aware. Whether that self-awareness connects to something larger remains to be discovered. But the fact that it exists at all is perhaps the most astonishing fact about reality, the most profound mystery, the deepest question we can ask. And maybe, just maybe, the key to understanding everything.